Last year, Game Freak and the Pokemon Company revealed that the next Pokemon game would be Pokemon Legends ZA, a mysterious game that takes place in the Kalos region. The reveal of this game was unprecedented. However, this game is nowhere to be seen, and 2024 ended up being a gap year for the franchise. We have not received a game in over a year, and what I want to talk about today is the beauty of this. Myself and today's guest have spent the entirety of 2024 replaying and re-examining classic Pokemon games like Heart Gold, Soul Silver, Black 2 and White 2, Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, Pokemon X and Y, Red, Blue, and Yellow. You name it, we've played it. And today's discussion is going to be a retrospective of all of these games, picking apart our favorite elements, and today we're going to be deciding what needs to carry over into future generations. Welcome back to Hidden Power. This is a Pokemon podcast. My name is DustyGogoat, and today I'm joined by my guest, AOKCraig. Thanks for being on the podcast today.
I'm doing well. I hope you're well too. Happy 2025.
Yeah, Happy New Year. Happy New Year. It is a big year for Pokemon. We got Legends ZA coming at the tail end, probably. Depending on when you're listening to this, maybe it's already out. Maybe it got delayed till 2026. Who knows?
I hope not.
I think that's what our conversation is going to kind of stem from today. The fact that we just had a gap year. I'll say this for listeners. I do want to give you a platform to kind of talk about, maybe like set up who you are, what you do on YouTube. But I think for listeners, from my perspective, I wanted to have you on today, Craig, on the podcast, because I've been watching your channel all year long, which happened to coincide with our gap year in Pokemon games. And a lot of your content stems around, I feel like where your bag is talking about the older games, right? The games that have come before that maybe people haven't had time to appreciate or go back to. And so through you and through your videos, I've been able to watch these videos where you detail the story of Sun and Moon, or potentially the post-game of Black and White. So I think that's why I've been really appreciating your content, and I've been doing it the same. I've actually been playing a lot more Pokemon games in 2024. But yeah, Craig, please tell the audience who you are and what you do on YouTube.
Absolutely. So my name's Craig, or AOKCraig on YouTube. I do a lot of sort of Pokemon discussion videos, I guess. I spent a lot of 2024 doing, as you mentioned, a lot of retrospectives of the older games. I'd say my videos are quite sort of conversational in tone. That's sort of very intentional. You mentioned that we're sort of learning about the games as we go along through the videos. That's me as well. Like, you might be learning about them. I'm also learning about them because, as we said, 2024 was this huge dry spell in Pokemon, probably the biggest dry spell we've had in 10 years. So it was a perfect opportunity to go back and play some of those older games that, I'd only maybe played once when they first released, or maybe I'd never played them at all, because I had a pretty lengthy break in Pokemon, which we'll probably talk about later. But the sort of breakneck speed that Pokemon games come out at nowadays, you sort of, if you have had a break in Pokemon and you come back, a lot of the time you might not even have time to go back and play the older games, because the newer games are coming out so fast. So I've sort of been grateful for 2024 being as quiet as it has been in the mainline sense.
No, looking back, I feel the same way. Yeah. I wonder if our listeners feel that way. I don't know. I'm not sure. But yeah, I definitely feel like in the last 10 years, maybe with the introduction, maybe like the synergy between Pokemon hype and the internet, I think has prevented people from going back. I also, on this channel, kind of infamously, I always yap about my desire for ports. I like the concept of making older games more accessible, because a lot of my life playing Pokemon isn't about the latest game. It's about all those games that came before, right? I mean, in a lot of ways, playing through Kanto and Fire Red was just as important and viable, for, a 2-3 week long playthrough as Diamond and Pearl or Heart Gold, Soul Silver. That was my experience growing up. But yeah.
Yeah, this the whole thing, like, I mean, ports. Gosh, I feel like I've predicted ports for the last 3 Pokemon days,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's just never happened. Maybe this year. Maybe this year.
No, I'm
But yeah, I
where I've landed on ports is 30th year anniversary.
oh, okay.
Because
Yeah.
I was also guessing it because I'm like, we have this time. There's a DLC this year. What, you might as well put something else out, or oh, the NSO is a thing now. They're focusing on the NSO. They're going to give us ports. It made sense. I just got a comment yesterday about a video that I put out 2 years ago, and they were like, reading this in 2025, still no ports. and
Yeah.
I think I've realized, I just looked back and I was like, okay, the time that they dropped the Gen 1 and 2 ports on 3DS was during the 20th year anniversary. So unfortunately, we have to wait, I think, now to the 30th year anniversary. And that's not so bad, because then they can also, that also kind of works with the promotional cycle of Switch 2. So I think that makes sense.
Yeah, and also I think if I remember rightly, the ports for the DS came out right at the end of the DS's life cycle.
Yeah.
Which is sort of why I've been sort of predicting them over the last couple of years, because it's been like, we've known that the Switch is coming towards the end of its tenure as like the main console. So yeah, I mean, the Switch 2 is a whole thing as well. That's got to be announced in the next couple of months, I want to say. Is that like we're at like the end of the bracket now, aren't we?
Yeah, probably. When this comes out, it might already even be out. Who knows? But yeah, so Craig, I'm curious to know, like, what as you go back through these games and you discover these games, or maybe you replay them, like what stands out to you? What really, like, what energizes you? Like, what draws you to Pokemon? Is there one particular thing where when you think about the Pokemon games, or maybe just the Pokemon franchise in general, like, is there something that really, like, just kind of sparks a light in you,
I think for me, and it's probably quite a common one, to be fair, but it is just the sheer replayability of Pokemon games, that you can play the same Pokemon game 10 times and have a completely different experience every time of it. You can have a completely different Pokemon team. Some of the games you can do things in different orders, and that's it's something that never loses its novelty for me, I guess.
No, that makes sense. I always felt like Pokemon games they play like open world games, right? Especially because they're on a handheld console, right? If you're playing a game on a handheld console and it feels like an open world game, yeah, obviously it looks like nothing in comparison to GTA or whatever game. Pick your game. I don't even know if Elden Ring is actually an open world game, but I always think of Skyrim. And I'm like, okay, it's not an open world game, but it is, right? As you unlock everything, now you have this massive sandbox to play in, right? And there's always something to do. Like, I remember growing up finishing a game, and then as I enter post game, I go, you know what? I'm gonna create a new team, right? And make and in my mind, in my headcanon, even though I had beaten the game, I'm like, okay, I'm a new trainer, and I started from this, and I'm actually from this town. It's that imagination. I feel like it's such a clean palette, the Pokemon games, for whatever I want, right? To actually fulfill the promise of a role playing game, right? Like, I can embody whatever human character and capture whatever Pokemon I want and be whatever trainer class. I don't know. Those are the things that I think about, right? Especially when I'm playing post game. But that makes sense. The exploration, that makes sense. Is there like a feature? Is there something that you just love that maybe stands out to you from one of the games that you've played over the last year, where you're like, this needs to return?
Oof. Feature that should return. I mean, looking at like the most recent ones, I'm going to a very recent one I want to return, but I do miss the customization. I think that's one thing that I really enjoyed about what you could do with your player character. Obviously in Scarlet and Violet, it makes sense. You're a school student, you're going to wear a uniform. I suppose they did give us a few options for the uniforms that we wear. But yeah, man, I really miss that full customization. I miss seeing people in, you know, a bright purple hoodie and neon green shorts.
No,
with
totally.
multicolored hair and stuff.
I picked up Sword version just recently, and it is it's shocking to see the difference. To compare that, I played a month and a half of Scarlet and Violet. Right, I'm catching all the Pokemon I need to get the Shiny Meloetta event in home. And I pick up Sword version for the first time in like a year, 2 years, and it's shocking to see how beautiful and how intentional every single frame of that game looks. Even from the art style to the performance. I think there is a tree somewhere in the wild area that doesn't look very good. I've seen that online. But but the game, even the battles, right, feel... Everything has like an artist's touch, right? And in comparison to Scarlet and Violet, I know this is not really to your point, but it's really beautiful to see how great that game is, and the character customization again goes to that thing that I love, which is full immersion, which is like full true role playing. Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah,
yeah.
On your point of, you know, everything feeling intentional, I think that's something that comes with having a fixed camera in a Pokemon game rather than having the 360 camera and this full open world. Because like open world to me is a great concept, and I think it's something that, like, especially if you're sort of fans like us that have played since the very early games, it's something that you've always dreamt of. But there's something about a more linear space that makes you feel that extra immersion for me. So that everything you're looking at is fully intentional. You're not like swinging the camera around everywhere and seeing almost like behind the curtain in some areas.
No, absolutely. Yeah. I feel like there's been times in Scarlet and Violet where I think it's Alfornata. That's the coastal. I think it's like a southern, southwestern town.
Something like the South Coast.
And it's a really nice area when you're in it, right? There's wild Gogoat everywhere. It's nice. There's some cool Pokemon around there. If you soar in the sky and you kind of like remove yourself, you fly for 30 seconds, then you look back at the town, and there's like a disconnect that has happened to me, at least, where I look at that town, and I feel like all immersion is lost. It looks like a set dressing, right? It doesn't look like a city. When I'm there on the ground, it feels like a city, but when I remove myself, it feels, I don't know. It doesn't feel. It looks like a house. It looks so tiny, like a little village.
Yeah, it almost feels like you've clipped out of bounds. In the game.
Like you shouldn't be. Like you said, you shouldn't be seeing it.
I always say, think of the difference between like Glimwood Tangle in Sword and Shield.
Yeah.
And what's the one in Scarlet and Violet called?
Are you talking about the? Yeah, there's a forest there.
Area.
Yeah, where there's bamboo. Is that the one you're talking about?
I'm forgetting where it's going.
It's all right.
Yeah, the one with the graffiti Pokemon.
Oh yes, yeah. The Graphii village or the Graphii jungle.
Yeah, that one.
I'm making it up.
I'll think about it later.
Yeah.
But yeah, like if you were to do the same thing with Glimwood Tangle, I think, like, how immersion breaking would that be?
Yeah.
To be soaring above that, I think the whole magic of places like that is that it is sort of shrouded in this mist and you can't see everywhere.
Yeah. No, but I think the word that you used right there, magic, is actually so valid in this. In it's the right word to use, because like a Pokemon world where there's these fantastical creatures should have magic, right? It should feel like it should not. I'll tell you what it should not feel like. It should not feel like every other game for the PS5 or any other Earthbound world, right? Like, let me see if I can get like a big image of like Glimwood Tangle. Let's see. It's fantastical, you know? It's something that should only exist in a Pokemon game. And I think Sword and Shield is full of locations like this. And I find very too often in Scarlet and Violet, you look at anything in the open map in Paldea, it just looks like sandy, grassy, or water. It's like, it's one of those three at all times. And there's nothing, and there's no specific, that is something that I heard when, that's a piece of criticism that I've heard of Scarlet and Violet when it came out, was that There were no landmarks, and there are landmarks, but I don't think it registers. I feel like nothing registers in Scarlet and Violet as a landmark because nothing has significance, right? And you could call, you could call that a story. You could call that, yeah, I don't know. I think that's what's missing from at least Scarlet and Violet. But I'm not trying to. What's something that you like about Scarlet and Violet? Because you were talking about the character customization, right?
Yeah, I mean, Scarlet and Violet. I do like Scarlet and Violet as games. I think they have a really great story. I think a lot of the Pokemon that were introduced in Scarlet and Violet are some of the best designs we've had in a while. So I do really love those games. I think I'm definitely a little burnt out with them now. We've sort of had longer with them than we do with usual games. But yeah, I can see. I think I can see where they're coming from with Scarlet and Violet. I can see what they're trying to do, and that's sort of what pulled me into it. I know there's a lot of graphical and performance issues. Personally, I'm just one of those people that can look past those things.
Yeah.
And just sort of enjoy the games for what they are. I've never been someone who gets a game for like the graphics or anything.
No.
It's a Pokemon experience to me, and I know a lot of people are going to say that I'm part of the problem.
No, dude, it's not a problem. Dude. No. It's not a problem, man. You're in good company here on the podcast. I mean, we are critical because we want to see it. It would be great to have a better playable experience, and I do think Scarlet and Violet dropped the ball. I do think it's like technically abysmal and therefore insulting a little bit, but it still adds so much to the franchise, right? I think the raids are great. The Pokemon are great. I think the vision, like you said, is really cool. It is an open world game, which is unique, and it's something that we wanted for a very long time. And I still think it can be very good. I think the characters, like the human characters, are wonderful. The story, people seem to like. I don't. I'm kind of wasted on the story. I like the Area Zero stuff. That's cool.
Yeah.
There's so many great things about Scarlet and Violet. Absolutely, it's just the right. There's two different things. There's like the generation, and then there's like the actual like technical product in the game, right? Which does hurt because, like I said, my access point into the Pokemon world is the games. So and that's another thing that's a little disappointing, right? This game is forever. That's something that I always get hung up on, right? When a new Pokemon is added and I rank it critically in one of our tier list videos, it's not because I'm like I just hate the Pokemon. It's like, well, this Pokemon is forever. This is a redundant Pokemon. It doesn't add anything. It's not even strong. It doesn't even look that cool. It's a normal type. Why does it exist? Give us something else. This is going to be around forever, right? Do we really need do we really need number 20 fish?
Yeah, my mind is instantly drawn to the Palmy line there. That does not need to be a 3-stage evolution.
Exactly. And Palmy's fine. Nothing wrong with Palmy, but Pomo, maybe cut that out.
Yeah.
But okay, so again, you played so many games. Like what's your favorite game that you played this year?
Favorite game that I've played this year? Gosh, I think I'd probably have to say Black and White. I played
okay.
Well, all of the Gen 5 games for the first time in the last year. It was the one generation that I just never touched.
Wow.
And finally got around to playing them this year. And I'm a fan.
Dude, that's actually okay. Maybe let's take it back because I might know this, but I don't know if listeners do. Did you already say what's your story? What's the timeline of you enjoying Pokemon? Let's just set this up for people. Because people truly, like a Pokemon generation really is representational of someone's age, right? Of when they enter the series. I think that's true for a lot of people. So yeah, I want to get the timeline of when you entered the series.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So I started playing with Generation 1. So Pokemon Red was my first game. I still remember the first episode of the anime playing on the TV.
Okay.
So Pokemania was sort of my entrance point into Pokemon. Gen 2, I'd say, was like peak obsession for Pokemon. I absolutely love Johto.
Nice.
Those games.
You're in good company.
I think to this day, Johto, I've played those games more than any other. And then Gen 3, I wasn't really a fan of at first. And
Really?
there's probably a few reasons for it. Like a lot of the features that were in Gen 2, main one I can think of right now is like the day-night cycle that
Yeah.
really added that extra immersion for me into the game. Like, it being dark in the game when it's dark outside was just huge to me as a kid.
Yeah.
Things like that got taken away in Gen
That is a good
3.
point,
A lot
honestly.
of, yeah, and, a lot of other features, I guess, I don't know if they kind of overwhelmed me maybe. Couple that with a lot of my friends at the time stopped playing Pokemon games.
Yeah, dude,
So
that'll do
that
it.
was sort of,
That'll do
that
it.
was sort of a big part of my experience of playing Pokemon games was playing with friends. We used to literally sit next to each other playing our games together. So
Yeah.
friends stopping playing, that's probably had a big impact as well.
I've
And then I
realized,
sort of,
just to like
yeah, go
add
on.
here, I've realized Gen 3 might be my most nostalgic generation. I think
Right.
Gen 2 was my most nostalgic for a long time, but I'm now 10 years removed from the thousands of hours or whatever that I've played. I played Gen 3 on my GameCube in college, in high school, in college, and
Oh,
also obviously just growing up. So I've realized I've actually probably put the most hours into Fire Red, Leaf Green, Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald. And now I'm realizing that the engine is most nostalgic for me. So it's okay. That's interesting to hear that you fell off around Gen 3. So
yeah.
so
I mean,
that
I
was
like them now. So
we could call that your Pokemon break.
yeah, so from Generation 3, so I played Ruby and Sapphire, but I didn't complete them.
Okay.
And then I had a lengthy break. I sort of still kept tabs on Pokemon without actually playing the games, so I'd still
Okay.
check periodically to see what are the next games that are coming out, what are the next Pokemon
What were you playing in the
sets.
meantime? I mean, I see a little bit of Yu-Gi-Oh behind you.
Yeah, I suppose that's sort of what I switched to for a while.
Yeah.
Came away from Pokemon. Gosh, at the time, I remember Beyblade was this huge
Oh,
thing
sure,
at the
sure,
time.
sure.
So doing a little bit of that. Yu-Gi-Oh was a big thing for me for a few years after that.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was sort of it until I played Pokemon Go a little bit when that first came out, and there was that crazy summer where everyone was out playing it.
Yeah, that
I
was a lot
played
of
that
fun.
for a few months, and apart from that, it was sort of until Sword and Shield.
Wow, dude.
Like that I came back. It was sort of during the whole pandemic times when we couldn't go outside, and
Yeah.
a lot of like other hobbies that we had were put on hold.
Do you think the TCG
So
got you back in? Maybe that caught your attention?
see, the TCG is something that I don't really trust myself to collect
No,
because
I'm with you. I'm with you. At
I'd
the
just
end of the
be
day, it's gambling. It's for a lot of people. If you play the game, that's different. But like, if you don't play the game and you're just a collector, it turns into gambling where you're just ripping
yeah,
packs. Yeah, that
absolutely.
happens to me. Yeah, but I
Yeah,
just know like
definitely.
during the pandemic, that was such a huge phenomenon. I'm curious if that maybe brought you into, at least got back on your radar. Pokemon got back on your radar to re-enter the series.
Yeah, it definitely put Pokemon sort of back, sort of front of mind, sort of thing.
Okay.
That and like I said, a lot of our other hobbies got put on hold, so we were sort of trying to find other things to keep us occupied.
Yeah,
That I
yeah.
started sort of looking back to things I used to like a few years ago, and yeah, Pokemon was one of those things. I saw that the latest games were based on the UK, which probably helped a lot.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah,
probably
yeah.
a big pull
That
for
makes
me,
sense. Okay, that makes sense.
and yeah, just sort of fell back in love with the franchise from there.
Man, that what is that like? Um, Playing a game that is so. I guess a game. Yeah, a game. What's it like playing a game that you enjoy thoroughly, right? That is so immersive. That is based on your home country. Because
It's
yeah,
Yeah, it's pretty crazy because you play through, like I play through Pokemon Sword and Shield, and in different towns and locations, I can actually sort of pick out, okay, that I
sure.
think that is taking inspiration from this place,
Yeah,
and this route kind of looks like this area over here, and yeah, it was like I said, definitely added an extra layer of intrigue and immersion
Yeah,
to
man.
my playthrough.
For the amount of hate that Sword and Shield got at the time, man, they really hold up well. Like every single screenshot looks so beautiful. Like you could frame this, right? Man, they do some crazy stuff with the camera to just position everything. So, this is, dude, I forgot about this whole feature. This is the
the Poke Jobs.
the Poke Jobs. I totally forgot about this. This is so cute.
Yeah, that was a fun feature.
It almost and then to illustrate that you're like in a digital space, they make everything blocky like Minecraft.
Yeah,
that's so cool. Man, I gotta look into that.
Yeah.
So okay, you know what, dude? I kind of want to jump to our speed round questions to get to know you a little bit more. I've been kind of asking a lot of general questions. You told us who you are and what your background is. Where is this? Right here. Yeah, give me your top 6 Pokemon, your dream team.
Top 6. Okay, Eevee, Umbreon.
Okay, you got
Porygon.
This locked in. Okay.
So Eevee, Umbreon, Porygon, Sprigatito.
Oh, nice, dude.
A new favorite of mine. And then I'd probably go for Alligator.
Yeah.
And why not? I'll stick a legendary in there, Lugia.
Wow, dude, what a team. I mean, very Gen 2, but then you got Sprigatito in there.
Yeah. Yeah, so just not a complete Gen 1.
Just base Porygon?
Yeah. Yeah, okay. I've always loved Porygon. It's I mean, I like the whole Porygon line, but just the base Porygon for me is it's always been a strong second favorite behind Eevee.
Yeah, that's nice. I guess I can see that. You got the Eevee back there, you got the Sprigatito. No Lugia plush. I love the Lugia, dude. Soul would love that. That's awesome. Do you have any like memories around these Pokemon that make them so significant to you?
I wouldn't say so. I feel like there probably are some memories there in the back of my mind that I'm not really sort of thinking of, but
yeah,
it's just sort of as I've played through the games, and there are certain Pokemon that I really go back to, and I think Umbreon is probably there because it has such a nice shiny. I love the blue on Umbreon shiny.
Yeah. Do you ever nickname your Pokemon?
You know what? No, quite controversially. I never nickname Pokemon unless I'm doing a specific run.
Yeah.
Where I'm, doing it as a gimmick and nicknaming them all after pizza toppings or something.
Yeah.
Then actually no, I don't nickname them, which I think comes from the anime really, in that like not a lot of Pokemon in the anime have nicknames apart from the odd one here and there.
Yeah.
I seem.
Do you use the anime? I feel like you mentioned the anime a couple times. Do you use the anime kind of as a reference point for your headcanon when it comes to like playing a Pokemon game? Like, is that, because I kind of do that too. Like, I think, when I'm sending out a Pokemon in an important battle, in my mind, I'm Gary Oak. I'm like pecking the Pokeball before sending it out, right? A little good luck kiss.
Definitely. I think even as a kid, I remember watching the anime before I played the games. So when I was playing the games, I was definitely sort of inserting myself into sort of the anime world. And this is something that I really like about the older games as well, is that they leave a lot of space for your imagination. So when I'm in Viridian City in Pokemon Red, I'm not imagining myself in that tiny little grid space. I'm imagining myself in the Viridian City that you see in the anime.
Yeah, that's cool, man. That's actually really sick. Yeah. I definitely feel like I get stuck on that a lot. And when I talk to younger people who play Pokemon, there's no right or wrong anything. But from my perspective, I have always enjoyed those older games because I kind of just like, I don't take them for granted. It's just like, that's what I grew up with. That's Pokemon to me. And I think a byproduct of enjoying Pokemon in a lower poly version, like a lower resolution, like the pixel art, is that there's a lot of room because the world is so scaled down. There's a lot of room for imagination and interpretation of the environments that you are in. And I think some of that gets lost with the 3D games. And I think that's why Scarlet and Violet kind of struggle, right? Just not to dog on Scarlet and Violet, but I do think that is a reason why it struggles. I think Let's Go is also kind of struggles because of that, because it's a 3D space, but they haven't like evolved the region, right?
Yeah,
They haven't like
that's
made.
It's sort of my biggest criticism of the Let's Go games, I'd say, is that you've made them 3D, but they still take place in the same 2D grid space of the original, so nothing's really fleshed out.
Yeah, and it's a little charming because it's nostalgic, but no, I'm totally with you. I think BDSP.
the art style is amazing.
Yeah, art style is amazing.
I'll say.
Yeah, people dog on Let's Go too much. I think it's like fine. I think it does a lot of really cool things, but yeah, I don't know. I think the only thing that is really bad about Let's Go is the controller scheme, the limitation of how you can play the game. That's the only like actual issue I have with the game.
Yeah, 100%. I'm glued to my Pro controller, so
yeah.
Not being able to play the games.
I still don't even have a Pro controller. I still use the little the dock, the handheld controller dock for the Joy-Cons.
Yeah. I think I've lost mine. I have no idea where that's gone.
I got a couple. What was I gonna say? What were we just talking about before Let's Go? Oh, I think BDSP also has a similar issue with that. BDSP, it's this grid-based system, but you can move in 360, and it's technically 3D. Well, yeah. What do you think about those games? Did you replay BDSP?
I did recently.
Okay.
I think.
Give me a hot take. I'm fishing for a hot take.
Okay. I mean, I didn't dislike BDSP as a lot of people did. That's probably biased in a way that I didn't play the original Gen 4 games back in the day. So
that could make a difference.
So BDSP was my introduction to the Gen 4 games. It was my introduction to the Sinnoh region. So I didn't dislike them as much as a lot of people did.
Yeah.
I still think Gen 4 is probably my least favorite generation, just because I think that like the story's a bit. It feels like they sort of phoned it in with the story.
Okay, yeah.
The villains are very sort of generic.
It's like a James Bond villain, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Destroy the world for the sake of destroying the world. Yeah,
exactly that. But yeah, despite that, I kind of don't mind BDSP. They're not games that I would come back to if say I was like going away for a couple of weeks and I could take a Pokemon game with me to play.
Yeah, I
wouldn't choose BDSP.
Say that. Yeah, I mean, we're similar in age. Do you think if the Pokemon Company wanted to make another game, another like faithful remake in a similar style where they're trying to recapture the top-down pixel art experience, do you think that's something that you would enjoy if they did it with like a black and white game or a Kanto game or something? Maybe a Johto, right?
Yes, I suppose this could be a hot take. If they did that with the first Gen 5 game, like first 5 generations of games, I'd buy them. Absolutely.
That's cool. No, I tend to be with you. I think there were like some technical issues with BDSP that, again, as a Pokemon fan, didn't make me too happy, because it's like the idea of like of misclicking and then being and then almost like soft locking your game where you have to like reset it. Like that always bothers me with BDSP. There's little things like that, and there's some annoyances, but overall, I think they really are faithful remakes to Diamond and Pearl. I'll say this: my only issue with BDSP is that they're too faithful. I said this one time, and I think it's a pretty good way to describe it. They feel like ignorant or unaware. The creation of those games feel purposefully like unaware of the improvements that were made in Platinum version, right? I think for most Pokemon games, the third version adds some interesting additions, but the issues with Diamond and Pearl come down to Pokemon selection. It comes down to what Pokemon you can evolve, right, before post game. It comes down to a lot of things like that. You know, not necessarily difficulty, but just it. I really feel like Diamond and Pearl. You said you haven't played the originals. I feel like they really are. They don't hold up well. But the improvements that BDS make are great. I think the Underground is awesome. People like the old Underground, but I think a fusion of those two things could have been maybe a little bit smoother. So I think that's nice. I think the games are a lot quicker. That's nice.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that's
one of the things.
Yeah.
I sort of, when I played BSP, I was asking a lot of people, should I go back and play the original Diamond and Pearl? Because I think they are now the sole mainline games that I've never played.
Yeah.
And I think pretty much everyone said, no, don't bother.
They're the same game, essentially, you know?
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of, I think there could be for me, all I care about is having more Pokemon experiences available on modern consoles, right? I think about my nieces and nephews who are getting into Pokemon. Just recently my nephew said that his favorite Pokemon, and he has never played a Pokemon game. He has like an encyclopedia book or something that he maybe got from a book fair. He said his favorite Pokemon is Gigantamax Dreadnought, which is great.
Okay.
But if he said his favorite Pokemon was I don't know, pick a Pokemon that's no longer available, right? Pick a Pokemon that's only available on 3DS, right? Then that would be sad, because I'd be like, okay, well, in 3 years when you can play the Switch too, you can't, unless you're a fanatic, you're not going to have access to these older Pokemon, you know? Thankfully, Gigantamax Dreadnought is available on Switch and will likely be on Switch too through backwards compatibility. So he's good there, but yeah, I think it. I don't know, man. I'm a sucker for the older games. It's not even like, oh, I think the older games are better. It's just like, I think they are as valid as any newer game. And I think the promise that Pokemon has always offered has been, you play your old, right? Because you kind of removed yourself from the franchise for 10, 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
But during that time, I would replay older games, and then this was the magic. I could then bring them up to modern systems, right? Let me think of it. The Blaziken, right, that I had, or the I'll say the Umbreon from Pokemon Colosseum, which is a Gen 3 game on the GameCube. I was able to bring that into my Emerald version, bring that into Gen 4 Heart Gold Soul Silver, and then up to Gen 5, right, with Black and White. And that's something that I was able to I no longer have it for whatever reason. But now there's even Gen 5 Pokemon that I have in Scarlet and Violet, like Pokemon from my original Black and White game. And I think that was a promise that was made, and it was such a big deal when that was potentially not going to be the future. I feel better about the Nat Dex at this point. But I don't know. Have you ever thought about that at all? Have you ever thought about that? Like all the teams, you've played through all these games and you have all these teams. Have you thought about or what do you do with them? Have you thought about bringing those up into modern games? I don't. Maybe you're not a collector. You're like that. Maybe you're not a fanatic.
I do sometimes. So I do have a full living dex in Pokemon Home right now. And
okay, that's great.
Yeah, whenever there's something, say for example, Scarlet and Violet, when these 7-star raids are coming out and we're looking at what sort of builds are good for it. If there's a Pokemon there that I know I've got in Home and it's come from, X or Y or something, I'll be like, yeah, okay, I'll bring this up to Scarlet and Violet. That's got a bit of an extra story to it.
Yeah.
That it's helped me defeat these raids.
No, that's cool. Okay. But you don't nickname them, though.
I don't nickname them, no.
Yeah, dude. I don't know if I like you
Maybe
anymore.
I should.
No.
Maybe I should start.
Yeah. I think it's fun, dude. It's fun to nick. Once you enter, it's kind of fun. Because the way I think about it, it's like a shiny Pokemon, right? Right. Everyone's got an Eevee. A lot of people have a shiny Eevee. But how many people have a shiny Eevee that's nicknamed after the sushi place in my hometown? Right?
Yeah, true.
No one. And then in that way I go, okay, if this thing's ever lost to time, if this thing's ever wonder traded, it's one of one. That's
very true. Yeah,
that's how I think about the nicknames. I'm like this thing has pure individuality.
Yeah.
It's its own Pokemon.
I just have a lot of pull to it. Yeah, you might be able to convince me. Maybe when Gen 10 hits, maybe
I'll try it, man. It's fun. It's fun.
Nicknaming.
Was there ever anything like surprising playing through like some of your best videos, some of your best performing videos are like your post game videos. What do you think makes a good post game?
I think having something that expands something that you maybe just briefly encountered in the base game is very good to have in the post game. Because like as you're playing through the base game, I feel like I'm kind of one of those people that likes to stop and talk to every NPC and things.
Yeah.
And I feel like expanding on that in the post game is a really good reward for doing that.
Yeah.
For having that extra bit of intrigue and exploring a bit more. So I like it when things are sort of brought back in the post game or expanded upon, and it's nice just to have something to do. I feel like Scarlet and Violet are a little more lacking in the post game area, and it's something that the older games maybe. Oh, I say the older games, like the ones in the middle, maybe I'd say have got the best post games.
I would say anything. I would say there's a cutoff on around Gen 5. I'd say Gen 1 to 5 is like an older game. Maybe 6, 7, 6 and 7 are like. Are those contemporary? No, those are classic. You can call them classic. They're not old. They're They're not vintage. They're classic.
Yeah, not vintage yet.
Yeah. Yeah. So what are those things again? So just you said like appearing, like characters appearing. Is that kind of what you mean?
Yeah. So if say for example, like X and Y, you get a whole quest with Looker, who is he's a character you see in a lot of games, but it was really nice to have a post game that was like centered around him.
Yeah,
and he's not, you're not just experiencing an encounter with him for 2 seconds and then he runs away.
Yeah,
but you get like a whole storyline.
Yeah, no, Looker has never grabbed me in that way, but I think it is fun because it kind of like creates there's a new storyline, right? That's removed from the story from like the main game, and it literally gives you something to do. I think I tend to look for in post game. I think I tend to really gravitate towards anything that is a sign or connective tissue between the game I'm playing and other Pokemon games in other regions. One of the most like visceral memories I have is playing through Diamond and Pearl. I guess it was my Pearl version. And you get to Sunny Shore City, and Jasmine's sitting there, right, on the beach.
Yeah.
And to me at the time, as someone who grew up with Johto, I'm like, this feels unreal, right? Actually, I don't think I've ever thought of it like this, but it's a crossover. It's a cameo. I'm not a Marvel guy, but it's got to feel like a Marvel like movie when, I don't know. Lumi's always bringing up the Marvel references, but it's like you're watching. I just watched the new, the latest Spider-Man movie where all the Spider-Men show up, right?
Yeah, I see what you're saying, because it's like you see things cross over in different games. You can then start to like piece together the timeline.
Yeah.
Whereas it's not sort of explicitly given to you, but you sort of think, okay, yeah, like Jasmine's here, okay, and she looks sort of the same age as she did in Gen 2, so this must be taking place around the same time.
Yeah.
And
I like how you think about like piecing it together like that. That's like a theorist's brain. Because I think what I just like is that in my mind, I'm like, okay, she's not just like a static NPC who's a gym leader. She's traveling. This character is in Sinnoh. I encountered her in Sinnoh, so she must be doing other things. What's Chuck doing? What's Sabrina doing? What's Blaine doing? What's Brock up to, right? Is he actually with Ash on an adventure? I have no idea. Those are the kind of things that start turning my mind. And yeah, even battle or finding like Cynthia in Black and White, right? A champion. Yeah. That's like an infamous encounter, right? With how difficult that battle is. But she's the champion of the Sinnoh region, and then you find her in Gen 5. I think that does a lot for me. The Pokemon World Tournament in Black and White 2, that's epic as well. It's kind of just like the ultimate version of what I'm talking about, right? Or even in Sun and Moon, right, where you find You fight red and blue. And they're aged up. That's even cooler.
Yeah.
They're aged up. That's something else I love in Pokemon games, where we get to see characters at different stages in their life, because it does what you're talking about, where it shows the passage of time.
Yeah,
nice, man.
I think for me, it's one of the biggest missed opportunities in Scarlet and Violet's DLC is not doing that with the Blueberry Academy, because it's backing Unova. It's where
they did a little bit of it. But you're right. I think you're right. I think you're right. They could have done a lot more.
Yeah, so like what I wanted to see was like a few characters coming back from different generations. Obviously, what they went with was just sort of bringing the teachers over from Paldea and some other characters as well. I think it would have been really cool to have it could be like red or blue, or some gym leaders from different regions come over.
I mean, so I guess why I pushed back is because we do have characters who are supposed to be the children of like characters in other from the Unova region. And I guess it would be really cool to be like, oh, Drayden is here. We know Drayden, but Drayden is here, the Dragon Master, right? If he makes a little cameo, I mean, yeah, we don't need to get into it because it is very speculative, but the new rumor is that the Gen 5 remakes are not dead, and they are coming back. So who knows? Maybe I guess it would make sense to not give us those characters and to just give us these like children of. So when we actually get to play a Gen 5 remake or a revisit or whatever, a true Unova revisit, there's like connective tissue there. That could be something. Who knows?
It'd be nice.
Yeah.
It'd be nice. Yeah.
Craig, I want to ask you, I am curious because you started up on YouTube just this year, or I guess last year, right? A year ago.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of made you want to make videos about Pokemon specifically? Because a lot of people start YouTube channels. First off, a lot of people who want to make channels don't, because they don't have the confidence. And that was me for like 7 years. Mm-hmm. I wish I started sooner. And then also people who start making videos on YouTube about gaming usually don't commit to Pokemon. It's a smart thing. Your channel's doing really well this year. And that's kind of why I'm curious, because your channel's doing really well.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a fair few different creative outlets over the years. Some have been YouTube channels that I've had before. None of which have grown at the speed that this one has, but I have done this YouTube thing before, so it's not completely alien to me.
Cool.
But yeah, I suppose like a lot of those things, sort of going back to what we were talking about earlier, and when the sort of pandemic months were hit and we had to sort of forego a lot of our usual hobbies.
Yeah.
It was sort of a case of, okay, this is sort of my main hobby now. I guess I'll start making videos about it. And to be honest, as you've just said there, for a long time I didn't. So I got back into Pokemon late 2020, early 2021.
Yeah.
And didn't start the channel until about a year ago. So it was definitely a case of me sort of building up that the confidence to do it again.
Can you see yourself, do you see yourself making YouTube videos, Pokemon videos for a long time from now? I mean, your channel's doing really well.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose in my own mind, it was a bit of an experiment for last year to see how it'd do, and that would sort of decide whether I pushed on with it. But yeah, I'm very happy with how it's growing, and I don't have any plans to stop anytime now.
That's good.
As I said, 2024 was a very dry spell year, and I still managed to find some content out of somewhere from it. So I'm looking forward to 2025 and getting back up here again and get the hype season back.
There's gonna be that's great. There's gonna be a lot of newfound interest in the franchise. I think you and I think this podcast and your channel, I think we've been filling the void. There's a lot of competition when a new game comes out because a lot of people are making guides, and they're making like tips, and they're making new theories and this and that. But I think there's still a core fan base who love Pokemon, who want Pokemon content, even if it's not new content, who, in the spirit of your channel and what you do on YouTube, is go back and look at what has come before. You know, I think there's a big hunger for that. And I think what is so great about the franchise is that because it's not stopping, because it's continuing to reinvent and to change the lore, right? I tend to say that's a good thing. I think it's good to change the lore. Not to change the lore of what is existing, but to, you know, add new details, add new wrinkles and ripples into what we understand. Because what that does is it gives us a new way to look at what has come before, right? We can play those older games and be like, wow, this is really similar to this, right? And this year there was that massive data breach, the Terra leak, the Game Freak Terra leak, where we got so much insight into the creative process at Game Freak. So I just think it's really cool to see how all this stuff like changes over time. And I think that's why I've been really compelled to watch your channel, because you're always going back, right? And I think your delivery is really casual and honest, and I don't know, it just feels like a journal entry, like a voice. It's like it feels like you're sending me a voice memo, you know?
Yeah, I'm glad that comes across, because that is exactly what I was intending. When I was sort of putting together this YouTube channel, a big thing for me was I don't want to sort of do the same thing that a lot of people are already doing very, very well.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of people out there that are doing fantastic Pokemon deep dives and theory videos and everything else in between. I thought maybe there's a gap in there somewhere for someone to come in and just talk about Pokemon as if, like, the way that I script my videos out, it's as if I'm just talking to a friend about Pokemon. You know, a friend that's a casual player.
That's what people are looking for, man.
And yeah, thankfully, it seems to be resonating with a lot of people. So
we were talking,
really happy.
Yeah, you should be. We were talking offline about. I guess it was just mostly just me telling you, but it's difficult to find friendship the older you get, and I think people are hungry, especially around their interests around Pokemon, to find people and to find content, to find videos, podcasts that kind of can emulate some of that friendship. And that type of bonding. So I think your channel is really successful in that way. Do you have any inspirations? Any Pokemon inspirations? Like creators?
Oh gosh. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I try to be sort of different than the people that I watch, but of course, like creators like Birdkeeper Toby, Hoops and Hip Hop is a big one. You know, obviously you guys, your podcast, the awesome. Super Effective podcast. Hard to think of them off the cuff, but there's quite a lot. I've got into a lot of Pokemon YouTubers. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's see. So we didn't ask you this yet. What's your favorite type? What type would you be?
My favorite type, I'd have to say dark type.
Okay. And
your dark type. It sort of carries across to everything, because we mentioned Yu-Gi-Oh earlier as well. My favorite attribute in Yu-Gi-Oh is dark attribute as well. So
Summon Skull.
I don't know what that. Yeah. My favorite card is actually Jinzo in Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So yeah, I don't know what that says about me as a person. The dark type being my favorite in every single franchise.
Have you been to jail? Have you been arrested?
No. I can say that.
And what's your hidden power type? Yeah. Maybe something that people don't know about you.
Hidden power type. God, that's really difficult.
Because I'll tell you, I don't think you give off dark.
I don't know, maybe like normal.
Okay.
I think I'm like, for the most part, a pretty just average guy.
Yeah. What do you do for fun outside of Pokemon?
See, I'm not a huge like gamer in general.
Yeah.
But my biggest game outside of Pokemon is actually Rocket League.
Cool. Okay.
I do a lot of Rocket League with some friends.
Yeah, that's fun.
Outside of that, I kind of like to go outside, I guess. Do some. I love walking. I love hiking, and
Nice.
so I like to sort of get myself out. But fresh air is my sort of reset.
Yeah. Are you playing any Pokemon Go when you're walking?
No, I probably should. People keep nagging me to get back on that, but I haven't had the app on my phone for the longest time.
Sure.
But yeah, maybe I could do that.
I
at some
exclusively use
It's-
Pokemon Go to get shinies on Community Day, and then I transfer them up into
Alright.
Scarlet and Violet. They're kind of
Yeah.
like free
It's-
shinies, you know? They're like giveaways.
Yeah. It's like super intimidating nowadays though, because Pokemon Go, compared to what I remember it as, which
Yeah.
was very early Pokemon Go, looking at like even just a screenshot of the app nowadays, it's quite overwhelming. There's a
Yeah.
lot there.
There is, definitely. Do you have any like when we look out into Generation 10, this is kind of like what I wanted to ask you, and I never did, right? If we're looking at the next generation, if we're looking at future Pokemon games,
Mhm.
2024 for you has been this period of newfound knowledge. You've been looking back and collecting all these data points, right? These things, maybe figuring out what you love, maybe figuring out what you hate about Pokemon games. Like, when you think about future Pokemon games, is there something or a series of things that you're like, this needs to return, or this is the crux of what makes a good Pokemon game? What are your thoughts there?
I think, I mean, first of all, I think I'd love to see like a bit of a middle ground between linear and open world.
Yeah.
I think, if I'm being a realist, I think we're probably going to push forward with open world. But personally, my like ideal situation there would be if you imagine Sword and Shield, but with like a 3D camera and no loading screens.
Yeah.
So like the world would feel very all cohesive, and there's no sort of screen fading to black and fading back in. But it's still sort of everything's still intentional.
Yeah.
And like I always look at cities like Wyndon, where you look in the background, there's all those skyscrapers and everything, and you can't get to those places, but they fill out the world really well, and they make the place feel bigger than it is in the game.
Yeah, definitely. And the tricky
whereas,
I mean, I get how that is tricky, because like in Wyndon, they can position it so it looks like this. But if players have control over the camera and they can just jump on Koraidon and fly up, then maybe something's lost there. Maybe in cities they don't allow you to jump around, right? Maybe in cities you can't use climb Pokemon. Maybe that's or ride Pokemon. Maybe that's something that they implement. It's funny you say no load screens, because I do feel like what made old Pokemon games feel so awesome and feel like open world games was that there were no load screens. In the world, if you think about it, it is like old Pokemon games were open area. You could do whatever you wanted in that little biome, and then there were always these checkpoints or these what are they called, like tunnels, route.
Yeah,
there would always be a building to allow you to go to the next route.
Yeah, like gates.
Gates,
sort of
yeah. And you'd go through the gate, and essentially what that was, I think, was the game was loading. It's like, okay, we'll shut down whatever route you just were in, and you can enter this new one, and that opens up this new route. And I think that's actually not so bad. I do feel like Sword and Shield did a little bit of that. It's not open world though, but maybe a vision for Generation 10 is you have these, like you said, like like Legends Arceus, which we didn't even talk about. There are these open areas, and maybe there's these massive biomes that you play within, and then you go through a gate to go to the next area, or you fly to the next area, and it reloads a new area for you to go through. I think that would work very well, and I'd be happy with that. And what that would also allow to happen is, I don't know. I think by making something open world, there's a lot that needs to go into making the game still function with a director's intention, right? right? If you make something completely open
Yeah.
world and interpretational, or for interpretation by the player, then it makes it a lot harder to make a story. It makes it a lot harder for us to create a series of events that make sense, or that tell a broader story, or set something up, right? Again, I'm not trying to go back into the issues of Scarlet and Violet, but yeah, I like that.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Yeah, they're just sort of Scarlet and Violet. The problem is that they just have a lot of nothingness on the map, and
Yeah,
it almost takes away from because some of the places in Scarlet and Violet look amazing. Like Levincia has got to be one of my favorites cities in all of Pokemon.
yeah.
And for me, like, I don't even care that much that you can't go in that many buildings. That's never been a
I
real
hate
issue
that.
for me, because
That's the immersion.
you
for
hate
me.
that.
It's because
See,
because what that does is it adds depth to the city, right? It's like, if you go in here and then you go in this thing and then you go up the elevator and then you talk to this person, that's how you get their special trade Pokemon, right? It creates like this depth, and also it's like there's things to check. You don't even need to talk to NPCs. Anyways, I'm berating you with negativity. I sound like a
no,
Twitter thread right
I get
now.
it. I totally get it. I suppose it might be me going a bit too far into the realism side of things, in that I think, well, when I walk through a city, I can't just walk into any building I like.
No, that's
There's
true.
only certain ones. So
That's
yeah,
true.
maybe it's me taking.
That's actually a really good point. Yeah. And it's something that's just always been around. Yeah, this Levincia really is gorgeous. Yeah, but what about Legends Arceus? Have you played that at all? Are you excited for ZA? Are you expecting much from that?
I'm excited for ZA now. I remember when it was first announced on Pokemon Day last year. I was very indifferent to it, simply because I hadn't really played X and Y that much.
Yeah,
and we were all sort of expecting other things as well. So
I know,
like a lot of people, was a little bit shell shocked. But
what do you mean? What were you expecting?
I'm
just kidding. Black and white remakes, Johto remakes. I know. That's what we were perpetuating.
Something in that realm.
Yeah.
But yeah, I enjoyed Legends Arceus. I think its main issue is it doesn't have a lot of replayability. It's such a grand game with so much to do that it's very intimidating to sort of go through and do it all again. And with all the sort of things that you collect and use to craft things,
yeah,
to think of like losing all that is is not a nice thought. But the games themselves,
but isn't
really
that every
enjoyed.
Pokemon game?
Yeah, well, especially nowadays it is, now that there's items every 10 feet on the ground. But no, I liked Legends Arceus though. I loved the art style of it. I know a lot of people are a bit mixed on that.
Yeah,
but I really liked how those games looked.
Yeah, the art style mixed with I think the UI is really cool. I think that I guess it complemented the action gameplay. But then I think also that the setting of the game makes a big difference. It leaves an impact. Yeah.
I liked that you could catch Pokemon without going into a battle too. I think that's something that should be brought back, but maybe in a bit more of a limited sense.
Yeah.
Like maybe you are more incentivized to battle the Pokemon, but maybe you could get one Pokeball. Yeah. And you could, if you see a wild Pokemon, throw one Pokeball at it. If you catch it, great. If you don't, it runs away.
Yeah.
Despawns.
No, absolutely.
Maybe that could be a way around it.
No, I think that's something that needs to be brought into Gen 10. And I'm assuming, it's funny because I'm assuming a lot of features from Legends Arceus will carry over into ZA. That's not necessarily the case.
I mean, we don't even know what time period it's taking place in, do we yet? So
we really don't. I think it's cool. I really want Legends to just be like a gameplay difference. Like I want the gameplay to remain the same, because I do think the gameplay is a bit of a departure. It's and maybe not appreciated in the same way, or can't be appreciated by wider audiences. I think the turn-based RPG system of classic Pokemon in Scarlet and Violet is wildly appealing because it can be technical for adults, but it can also be very like approachable for younger people because, you know, you're not dealing with like real-time reflexes, right? Mm-hmm. So I think Legends is just a different product, and I hope it remains that way. I think it is also really cool. I imagine, I think the Legends series can be a really cool way for them to tell stories and to not retcon, but add more depth to different timelines in the Pokemon space. I imagine the main series games will, you know, I find that our real life technology is always represented in the most modern Pokemon game, right? The Pokedexes have just become cell phones, for example. And so those main series games will always match our timeline and push forward, and that's cool. But I think the Legends games, it's an opportunity for us to, you know, either go back 100 years, maybe 1,000 years at one point. If we get a third game, maybe it's just 20 years in the past, 30 years in the past, right? I joke, you know, it'd be fun to go back to Kanto if it was like a Legend-style game or just something different. We talked about it earlier. You know, Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee is a little underwhelming because it ends up just being a glorified, faithful remake. I mean, it is pretty, but it's like, I want to see the world built on. I don't want to see the cartoon version of Kanto. I want to see the real version of Kanto. And we could get that in like a Legends Indigo game or call it whatever you want. So I think there's a lot of promise in the Legends series, and I'm excited that we were getting a second one. To me, that tells me Game Freak is confident. The Pokemon Company is confident in this series, right? This is a game that can be more closely aligned and compared to, you know, the Zelda series or any other more, you know, adult game, you know, or a more serious, a premium game.
Yeah, it's interesting because, like, I know a lot of people who, but they played Pokemon Legends Arceus, but they won't play the mainline games, and I think that speaks to how
I respect
it speaks to how different it is from the mainline games, how different the sort of gameplay loop is, and just the way that the games handle and things. It does seem to be a lot of people that enjoyed like Zelda games that seem to have gravitated towards Legends Arceus. So it'll be interesting to see if ZA is sort of in the same vein as them. Like I said, we don't know what time period it's taking place in. So it'd be very interesting if it takes place like in the future, because that sets we don't
even more.
I mean, right now we only so right now we don't really know what a Legends game is in a sense, because we've only had the one. So it's, you know, are they all going to take place in the past? Is it, you know, or is it telling Legends from the whole span of, you know, Pokemon time? So
man, that would be crazy.
It's gonna be very interesting.
That would be insane, man. If Legends ZA's in the future, that'd be insane. Is there I mean, do you like the Kalos region? Is there a game, is there a region where you would want to see a Legends title be, you know, kind of introduced with?
For me, again, very biased, but I'd say Johto. I think there's just so much you could play with the lore of Johto, around, you know, the Burnt Towers in Ecruteak and the Whirl Islands, and there's a lot of things that you could just sort of, you've got a head start on the writing process already. Yeah.
You have those like iconic elements in Pokemon and locations, characters, where now you just need to fit them into place into a proper story. Yeah. I'll say this also, like, man, Legends Arceus was maybe the only Pokemon game, one of the few Pokemon games where I felt like shocked at some of the beats of the story, and a little bit like, well, I don't know what the word would be, but like, I felt almost sad or affected. Like I felt remorseful at like the turn of events. I'm thinking about when we get cast outside of the city, right? The whole, what is it, Jubilife Village literally turns on you. You become an outcast. Like, and I remember feeling like paranoid almost, like, you know, and you don't see that often in gaming. I feel like you don't see that often, especially in Pokemon.
No, it's definitely has some sort of darker beats to it, and I think the ending is actually quite sad because our character is just kind of stuck there in the past.
Yeah,
Like we never.
wow.
I know that obviously we need to be able to sort of jump back into the game, and maybe that's the point, that the story isn't like, it's never really over for us. But I kind of expected it at the time to maybe loop back around. Yeah, where you can return back to your own time, but then every time you go back into the game, you're sort of using the Arceus phone to go back to Hisui. Yeah,
that's a really cool take, man. That's a great idea. I love that. That would be really cool because that's the whole thing. We get like what's it called? Isekai. We get isekai'd into this new world, right? We're like a fish out of water, and that would make total sense for us to return to. And maybe that was the intention, because I'm pretty sure it was data mined that there is like a modern room. There's like a playable modern room within Legends Arceus, or maybe that was a leak. I don't remember, but something was confirmed to have been in the game. It could have just been a leftover asset for them to test certain things, but it's a unique room, which tells me this is maybe the player character's original room. Maybe we were supposed to start in that room. Actually, yeah. Oh my God, yeah. No, from the data leak, there's a storyboard of what the beginning of the game is supposed to look like, and it shows the character in their room playing a game, and then they get sucked into the world. So that is what that was originally supposed to be. But I like your idea at the end. It's like return to form, and then maybe there's only certain things that we can get in that, like in that world, right?
Yeah.
Do you have any final thoughts? Is there anything swirling in your mind that you want to tell the audience? Not even about yourself, but just like anything. Like, I don't know. Is there again? Do you have a hot take? Do you have are you excited for Gen 10? What do you think? Like, what do you love about Pokemon?
I am excited for Gen 10. Yeah. I tell you what I want to ask you about is because I feel like me and you are on the same. I feel like we've both said sort of the same thing with this.
Yeah.
In Gen 10, do you think we're going to get another Kanto game?
Ooh. Yeah, this is kind of my pet theory.
Because
yeah, I mean, it's the 30th anniversary, I think. Yeah, man, I think absolutely. I mean, I think it gets a little bit dicey when we want to talk about like how they're going to do that. I feel like in a little bit of a way, we going to Kitakami felt like not going to Kanto, but going to... It was kind of a reintroduction. It was the first time that we had like a Japanese Pokemon region, and we don't know where that land of Kitakami is in proximity to Kanto, Johto, etc. But I wonder if Kitakami and the Blueberry Academy are teases at what's to come. Blueberry Academy is located in Unova. The rumor won't die that we're getting a black and white remake. Maybe that's on the horizon, and maybe... So the timeline I'm thinking would be, and then maybe down the line a Kanto game comes out. So the timeline would be Legends ZA comes out, then we get a black and white game maybe mid-year, right? Or February, March, right? Kind of like when we got Legends Arceus originally in like February or whatever. And then we get the Gen 10 game. And then they could either give us, they're probably going to give us DLC for Gen 10.
Yeah.
But maybe the DLC comes sooner than we think. And then we get a Kanto game. Or, we're likely going to have 4 years with Scarlet and Violet. What if we end up with 5 years or 4 years with Gen 10, and Game Freak is preparing, they're preparing Gen 10 to be more of a living game, right? I think I was going to bring that up earlier, right? You talk about like post-game not really existing anymore. The post-game that exists now is that there's like these living attributes. There's these events, there's these raids, there's these giveaways, right? There's all these like timed-based events that the Pokemon Company is drip-feeding to keep us engaged with the games over time. And I think the most logical step after that is Gen 10 lasting a little bit longer, but we have these more fleshed out and intentional DLCs that are not just like bonus packs, but are almost events in themselves, right? Like Blueberry Academy, yeah, that's fun. There's a lot of new stuff to do. It's good. But Generation 10, 30th year anniversary, the dream that we've had since we were kids was, and this doesn't make sense, but it could make sense in this concept, in this context. The dream that doesn't make sense is a fully open world game where you get to go to all the Pokemon regions. But a way that this could make sense is you play Gen 10, and then the DLC pack is Kanto. And that doesn't mean you do the exact beats of Kanto. It just means a world that you can visit and you can battle all the gyms. But there's no story. There's not all these other things. And maybe it's shrunk down a little bit. I just want it to be reinterpreted. And then what's right next to Kanto? Johto. Now you go to Johto. And you can get as greedy as you want, right? Maybe then we get a Unova game. Maybe then... I don't know. I'm not saying like it's a full game. What I'm imagining is the capacity. I'm imagining like the way that we interact with Kanto in the Johto games. It's post game. You battle all the gym leaders once. You go to these routes. They're a little bit truncated. They're a little bit more simple. They're not littered with trainers, right? But it's a way for us to, it's like this illusion. I don't know, actually. It's not even an illusion. It literally would be... I keep wanting to, like, tailor what I'm saying because it sounds almost too greedy or too lofty, like it could never happen. But I don't think what I'm saying is really that ridiculous. It's just another... I mean, the Kanto region is tiny, There's no massive landmarks. It's just a bunch of routes. Like, I think they could do that. I think that is not even that crazy. Because, again, it's a DLC, so you're just adding another location. You fly to it the same way you fly to Kitakami. And then you have this open biome, and you battle Brock, and then you battle Misty, and then, there's some quirky little characters. Or maybe it's, I don't know, and you can scale this up or down depending on however you want to dream it up. Mm-hmm. But I think about, like, what's after, like, what do they market after a open world game, right? Like, what can you add? Voice acting? Like, you can't say, oh, it's open world. We already have open world. That's not that exciting. Okay, you get voice acting. You add maybe better graphics, new Pokemon, obviously. But then I'm like, okay, well, you really want to sell a gimmick? Or you really want to sell DLC? Go back to the Kanto region. Buy our game with the bundle pack. And you get to go back to the Kanto region, right? Maybe 2 years later, you go to the Johto region. It's like the same game. I don't know. Maybe that is literally insane. I don't know, but it's the 30th year anniversary. It's the Gen 10 game. It's like you want to go big or go home. That is big. That is big. And then imagine you get to slap on red version. You get to slap on slap Charizard on the box. You get to slap Venusaur on the box. You get to slap Blastoise, Pikachu on the box. And then then I want ports, dude. I think ports also complements that because then it's like, okay, you love this, but go, play the originals too. It's $5 on the eShop. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. See what you said there about Kanto being sort of just a bunch of routes and things. That is the exact reason, pretty much, why I think there is something Kanto to be had in Gen 10. I think there's a lot more color that can be added to the Kanto region. Kanto it's bare bones Pokemon. It doesn't have any sort of gimmicks to it. It's Pokemon in its most raw form. So I think there's just so much you could do in setting a game there that it takes place 10 years after the events of Red and Blue.
Absolutely, man. This is the thing that I always think about. Okay, so this is a Kanto map for listeners. This is the Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee map. I love it so much with all the Pokemon, but this is Pallet Town. This is where you start, right? There's 3 buildings. I'm gonna say something here. First off, if this was realized in a Gen 10 engine, you could obviously add more houses, right? Make this to scale. But then also, what happens when you surf down here? There's all these rocks. Okay. We've seen there's so many ways they could do this. We've seen in Sun and Moon, you ride a Sharpedo and you can break rocks. Okay, great. That's a way to explain it away. then what the heck is over here? Why can't I swim over here? What's over here? There's like new things over here that I could go explore? Or if you don't want to, you know, maybe bend the map, you could also dive. If I could dive, then there's things underneath here, right? Or as we saw in Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, you can fly on Dragonite and Charizard and whatever. So is there stuff up top? You know? Can I like check out the top of treetops? Like, I'm just thinking, like, imagine the Kanto game to scale. This Route 1 can be a lot longer and more dynamic. There's trees, there's berries, there's hills, right? Then you go to this town. Great. Okay. Then whatever. But then is there something north of Pewter City, right? What about Mount Moon? That's a whole tunnel system that you could make even more. I think it's already pretty complex, but like, I just think about all these water routes and I'm like, if this was Paldea, like, then you could surf from Vermilion to the biking route or something, right? Or you could, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just think you can bend these things to allow for new access points. The Safari Zone. And again, if we're talking about DLC, maybe Game Freak doesn't want to do DLC. Maybe the move is, why would we sell our Kanto remake in a DLC? Let's sell our Kanto remake as its own standalone game. And that makes sense too, but then I still think my idea stands. You know, if you want to sell, you know, maybe Hoenn, they don't want to remake, right? And they're like, you can go to the Hoenn region just randomly. That's still really cool, right? Yeah. Or you can go to Alola, or you can pick a region, right? I think that's a new opportunity that's been opened up. But I'm looking at the time right now. I gotta go. Please plug yourself. Tell people where they can find you. I got your YouTube channel up right now on the screen.
Of course. So AOKCraig on YouTube and Twitch and basically all the social medias you can think of. Just search AOKCraig. If I'm on it, I'll pop up. Yeah.
Awesome retrospectives, thought pieces, deep dives into specific topics. I didn't know you were on Twitch too. What do you do on Twitch?
I do a lot of shiny hunting.
Oh, cool.
On Twitch. It's sort of a more casual thing that I do on evenings.
Yeah.
Just like hang out and chat, and not even about Pokemon, just about general life things.
Nice.
It's just a nice little hangout spot we have over there.
Awesome, man. And you know what? Is this your official face reveal?
On YouTube, I guess it is.
Oh, but you show your face on Twitch?
Yeah, so on Twitch I do have the face cam, but yeah, if you mainly know me
because I had never seen your face.
Yeah.
Awesome, man.
My official exclusive to the Hidden Power Pod.
Yeah, awesome, man. Well, thanks. It's so great to talk to you, Craig. I'll be watching your videos. Make sure you guys check them out. Links are in the description. And yeah, man, I'll talk to you soon, Craig. Happy New Year.
Yep. Speak to you soon. Thank you very much for having me.
See ya.